Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, you're joining us as we take a close look at a really fascinating source.
Yeah, it's a remarkable collection, actually. It's called Scottish Architectural Details, put together by John W. Small.
Right, and this book, it's basically his sketches and measured drawings. First published way back in 1880, wasn't it?
That's right, though the original title was Leaves from My Sketchbooks. It got republished in 1936, too.
Which, says something about its lasting value.
Exactly. Think of it as us kind of sifting through his firsthand observations. He was out there drawing what he saw.
So not just big picture stuff, but the details.
Precisely. Churches, castles, houses, stone, wood, metalwork, covering quite a span of history.
And these are his own records from his explorations back in the late 19th century. It feels very immediate.
It really does. And he mentions deliberately focusing on things that maybe weren't as well documented elsewhere, the smaller elements.
Like how an arch curves or tool marks.
Yeah, or how timbers join in a roof, that kind of thing. It tells you so much about the craftsmanship, the design thinking of the time.
Okay, so where should we start digging into these leaves? The book seems to kick off with some early church architecture.
It does. Small dedicates some early plates to the Norman period. Duddingstone Church, that's plate 2, is a key example.
Though it's been altered a lot, he says.
Sadly, yes, but enough survives. Like the chancel arch, you still get that Norman feel. And he sketched the south door.
What was special about the door?
Well, it's pretty weather-worn, but you can still see the classic zigzag ornaments.
Standard Norman decoration.
Right, and even a crucifixion scene, which is quite amazing. He also noted a flat Norman buttress different from later styles in the wall head corbelling.
Those projecting stones.
Exactly. Oh, and he even drew the jugs attached near the entrance.
The jugs.
Yeah.
Those iron collars for punishment. That really puts it in context.
Doesn't it? It's not just about the stones. Then he looks at Retho, Apal, and Dalmany churches on plate 64.
Okay, a group of 3. What's the story there?
Well, it seems to be about the contrasts. Apal's south door, for instance, he notes it's quite simple, maybe easier to copy than some others.
Right.
Then at Retho, he points out the cat's tooth enrichment on the hood mold of its south door. Very specific detail.
Cat's tooth. Okay.
But Dalmany Church, he seems really taken with that one. Calls it almost a perfect Norman example in Scotland.
Wow. What stood out?
The carved string course, that horizontal band of molding, and the south door arch mold carvings are incredible. The Agnus Dei, the Lamb of God,
Ah,
and an archer, which he figures is a zodiac
the
sign.
zodiac sign on a Norman church? That is unexpected. Speaks to the mix of ideas back then.
Definitely. He also includes a Norman window from Dunblane Cathedral's tower. That's plate XXDI.
What do you got that one?
Notes it as an early type, says the string mold is like one at Kirkliston, but interestingly, only part of the tower is Norman.
Oh, so it evolved.
Yeah, the rest is early Gothic. Shows how styles changed even on one building. And he didn't ignore later stuff either. He documented the 15th century oak choir stalls, even with later additions.
Always looking at the whole story. And he finishes the Norman section with Elgin, plate LVI.
A small Norman church there. He focuses on the chancel arch's cushioned cap, the top of the column.
Right.
And he actually tells you to compare it back to Duddingstone. He does that a lot, prompting you to see the connections.
How the cross-referencing is useful. Okay, let's shift from churches to castles, more fortified structures. Borthwick Castle comes first, plates I and the Knights.
Yes, and he makes a point of noting its known construction date. They had a license from James I in 1430. That's incredibly precise.
Wow, that's solid dating. What details did he capture inside?
In the main hall, things like the sideboard recess, a shield with the Lord of Borthwick's arms, even a damaged water drain he thought likely had colored shields originally.
Trying to reconstruct how it looked.
Exactly. These little things help you picture the life there.
And he even sketched the chapel. Plate 9X mentioned a small chapel.
He did. A really detailed look at this space on the second floor. Notes the east-facing altar, the credence shelf, the Picinia basin.
At Picinia, for washing vessels.
Right. He even notes its decorated end is broken. And the holy water basin. He also spotted how molding stops changed, some square, some splayed, possibly due to later plaster.
Subtle changes over time.
And mason's marks. He found those too.
Like the builder's signatures.
Yeah.
Amazing. Next is Ballaverde Castle, plate V. Sounds like it was in good shape.
Remarkably so for the 15th century, though uninhabited. And Small found something really rare there, parts of an original bedroom ceiling. Beams, joists, the works.
Wow, actual timber ceiling.
Yeah. Plus sketches of a fireplace, a window, some plaster decoration, and those distinctive chimney tops, the copes and finials.
Right. The crow-step gables often have those.
He also notes an ambry, a cupboard similar to one at Borthwick, linking them again.
Then there's Dunstaffnage Castle, plate 6 That has serious history with the coronation stone.
Huge historical weight, yeah. The stone was long gone by Small's time, of course, but his sketches show later additions and details from the ramparts.
Like what?
Well, that iron stand for a beacon fire fixed right into a boulder, a real reminder of its defensive role, and corbelling on the walls.
Okay. Towerdene Castle, plate 12, is next. A ruin, but he still found interesting bits.
Definitely. A window with some curious holes in the lintel. He seemed a bit puzzled by them himself.
A little mystery.
Yeah, and he detailed how the groove for the leaded glass stopped partway down the window side, implying the bottom was probably wooden shutters, and, significantly, another shield with the Borthwick arms, reinforcing those connections.
He's like a detective piecing together this network.
Yeah.
Fallside Castle, plate 13, also has different parts.
Exactly. He identified earlier and later sections and pointed out surviving ironwork in a later window quite rare to find intact by then.
Helps us imagine how others might have looked.
For sure. And in an older room, a fireplace with unusual lintel jointing, always noticing the construction details.
He then compares Borthwick to Cretan Castle, plate Texie 3, saying Cretan was more ornamental.
Yes, a real contrast. The East Wing arcade at Crichton is a great example. He describes the polygonal pillars, the simple arches, the string course mixed with corbels, and that patterned diapered wall with windows set into it. Visually rich. He even noted a carved monogram and referenced Billings' illustrations for more context.
Showing his awareness of other architectural records.
Mm-hmm.
And to wrap up castles, Rowallen, plate LV, focusing on an ambry door.
Yes, a specific one from the hall's southwest window, dated 1562. He details the fluted pilasters, some bits missing the cornice, the carved frieze, the pierced doors.
Very thorough.
Incredibly. He even shows the iron keyhole escutcheon on another plate, plate Felsebegan, and gives a full-size section of the base. That level of detail is just fantastic.
You really get a sense of his passion for these maybe overlooked elements. Okay, let's move to domestic architecture. Everyday buildings. He starts with some doors in Edinburgh, plate 9.
Yeah, one from the Duke of Gordon's house, another from Blackfriars Wynd. He thought they looked quite similar, maybe even had a continental feel.
Interesting. European influence.
Possibly. He also mentions surviving wood paneling in a house on Castle Hill, a reminder that his sketches sometimes capture things now gone.
Good point. Stenhouse House, plate 8, built 1623. What caught his eye there?
Typical features of that time in Scotland. Tall chimney stacks, crow-stepped gables, stone roof slates, and a really richly molded entrance door. It even had a pious motto carved on it. Blessed be God for all his gifts.
Nice touch.
He also noted how the stone weathered at the chimney base and that the original wooden shutter boards were still there. Insights into materials and aging.
He then dives into Edinburgh's closes, plate XC1, those narrow alleyways.
Yeah, a real gold mine for him. He found a late 17th century door in Milnes Court, amazingly with its original shutter boards.
Still intact. Wow.
And some late 16th century doors with a faded inscription. Also, a window set in a splay, supported by corbelling and dormer window details. All typical bits for their time.
The house at the corner of West Bow and Lawn Market, plate XL, seemed important to him. He regretted its demolition.
He really did. He documented it heavily. The corner window, the carved bracket underneath, the window interior with its corbelled mullion.
Mullion, the vertical divider.
Right. Shutter moldings, a borrowed light window between rooms, even a plan of the plaster ceiling. His sadness about losing buildings like this, even for improvements, really comes through.
Yeah, it makes his record even more vital. He also went down to Leith, plate XLI, and sketched a half-timbered house front.
A style maybe less common in Scotland, so a valuable record. Stone ground floor, timber upper floors. He noted decorated beam ends, maybe they once had coats of arms.
Speculating a bit.
A little. He also mentioned a fine stone house nearby, showing the mix in Leith, but sadly noted both might be demolished. That threat of loss is a recurring theme.
Moving out to Crail, plate XE3, a street front from 1626. What was special there?
The really rare thing was an ornamented stone ridge course right along the roof peak. Very unusual. Plus other Scots features. High chimneys, crow steps, dormers, door jamb sections, connecting it to other places he'd seen.
And finally for domestic, a doorway in Ely, plate XE4, that he called unique.
Yeah, it's pilasters. Those vertical supports were heavily trussed and elaborately carved. Very distinctive, though weathered. He also focused on the frieze and cornice above, noting the carving style was like contemporary woodwork.
Interesting link between stone and wood carving styles.
Suggests maybe the same craftsman or at least shared design ideas.
Fascinating how these details reflect not just building methods, but art styles too. Okay, let's look at churches again, but post-Norman this time. Dunfermline Abbey Church's south door, plate 7.
Right, and he notes this door is a later insertion, 15th century, stuck into the older Norman wall.
Ah, so not original Norman.
No. And it's off-center, and the hood mold above it was hacked off at some point. He also sketched a later memorial tablet nearby, and bits of the Triforium arcade higher up, showing that layering of history.
He also explored the ruins of the Abbey buildings nearby. Plate 8?
Yes, focusing on a picturesque chamber on arches, and the fiddler's loft feature sticking out on a buttress gives you a sense of the scale, even in ruins. And he provides detailed sections of that south door's jamb and arch mold, linking it all together.
Linlithgow Palace next, plate 7. A big royal complex built over time.
A real mix of dates there. He sketched the southwest corner mullioned windows, a carved corbel, a transomed window.
Transomed, with a horizontal bar.
Exactly. Also an ornament from a fireplace cornice, a section of interior plaster paneling, a seal or monogram from a floor tile, even bits of the courtyard fountain. A real variety pack of details.
Then the parish church nearby, St. Michael's, Linlithgow, plate XEIV, 14th century Gothic.
He highlights the north door of the nave aisle. It's round-headed, which looks Norman.
But it's Gothic.
Yeah, he points out that round-headed style actually carried on in Scotland much later than elsewhere. He gives molding sections, carving details, and even shows stone seats in the church that originally came from the palace parapets.
Recycling architecture.
Literally. And a border detail from an angel sculpture. Fascinating reuse.
Culross Abbey Church, plate XX, 13th century onwards. Lots of details there too.
Definitely. From the chancel, the north transept, the later tower base, details like the belfry door molding with mason's marks again, door bits from the choir wall, a window from the lost transept, buttresses, a carved panel over the entrance.
Quite a list.
And he notes the Bruce family burial aisle inside with a big Renaissance tomb from 1642, spanning centuries of history in one place.
Then St. Giles in Edinburgh, plate 58. Very famous church.
His focus was specific. A late Gothic door in the north choir aisle. He details the OG heads, those S-curves, the carved cusps inside them, and a panel with the Edinburgh coat of arms.
Specific moldings too.
Yeah, the common roll and fillet molding in the jamb. Plus a plan and base section of a choir pier, getting into the structural forms as well as decoration.
And finally for churches, Holyrood Abbey, plate Elekior, well, the ruins of it.
Mainly the nave that's left, mostly early Gothic with some Norman bits. He points out how the ruined piers on the north side actually show you how it was built, the different stones, the bonding.
The ruin reveals its secrets.
In a way, yes. He includes a pier plan and base section too, noting the characteristic molding style.
That's quite a tour through Scotland's sacred architecture after the Normans. Okay, let's switch to decorative arts and sort of miscellaneous bits and pieces he captured. Jacobean chairs on plate 3.
Yeah, and he notes how varied they were. One from Aberdeen is really interesting, belonging to the Flushers Guild from 1661. It has odd arches under the seat and their coat of arms.
Oh, unusual design.
And two others from Alloa Museum, one more typical, one possibly owned by King James VI himself, shows the range.
The sketches from Cooper Angus, plate 4, sound almost like archaeology.
Pretty much. The abbey was mostly gone, so he was sketching fragments, bits of groin vaulting, arch ribs, a pier base plan with a rare griff ornament, like a little claw or leaf at the corner of the base, plus a 15th century doorway from a nearby house, a swan carving, nail head details, a coat of arms on another house, piecing things together.
Candlesticks on plate X. Sounds like they're rare finds.
He notes that older ones were scarce. He shows a two-piece mahogany one, a guilloche pattern that interlaced design from a 17th century cabinet and pulpit moldings from Stirling Castle, broadening the scope.
South Queensferry sketches, plate Lyre, revealed some local quirks.
Yeah, 15th century church windows there. One had a really odd sill and lintel setup, almost accidental looking. Also bottom crow steps from old houses, and a carved panel with dips for candles, likely from a candlemaker's house. And he'd seen a similar one in Haddington. Making connections again.
Fireplaces, plate 16, central to home life. He compares a few.
He does. A 16th century one from Stirling versus a 15th century one from Edinburgh's Chalmers Close notes molding similarities to doors of the same period. Also simpler ones, one from Balverde, a jam section from Preston Castle, showing the variety.
He even got into the tiles used for fireplaces, plate X to 2.
Yeah, it mentions the typical purplish blue or red colors, gives examples from Holyrood, Grassmarket, Major Weir's house, noting corner patterns, and even the marks left by missing tiles at Craigmillar Castle.
Real forensic detail. Molded plasterwork is on plate XT3.
From Castle Stewart around 1600, gives an idea of interior finishes. Plus more mason's marks on that plate.
Details from Aberdeen and Dundee next. Plate XT Daddy. Regional stuff.
Seems like it. Stamped leadwork from an Aberdeen church roof, c. 1500, grave slab ornaments from both cities, a gravestone from Bern, Thailand, 1600, an inlaid oak church seat, a mix of materials and contexts.
Dates on buildings and furniture. Plate XT6. Always useful.
Super useful. He gathered examples from all over Dundee, Inverkeithing, Edinburgh, castles, churches, even a chair in Montrose Museum. Helps pin down the timeline of styles.
Grave slabs again. Plates at 14 and an XT8. Showing changes over time.
Definitely. Contrasts earlier flat slabs with later, often upright ones from around 1600. Notes reuse dates sometimes. The later ones from Colarossi calls fantastic outlines.
What kind of symbols?
Crosses, swords, shears are common on some earlier ones. Celtic patterns on others from Appin, different regional styles and symbols.
Kirkliston Church gets more attention on plates XC9X and XXX. Seems it was important to him.
It was a transitional church, late Norman to early Gothic, so lots to see. He really details the severe north door elevation, section, plan, moldings, contrasts it with the richer south door, points out the unique capitals on the north door, different from each other, and a molded corbel course on the choir wall head, different from typical Norman styles, plus a sketch of the nearby old inn dated 1682.
He even included a latrine from Cawdor Castle, plate X61.
Yes. Maybe unexpected, but practical details tell a story too. Sketch, plan, section. Shows the stone check for a wooden seat. A glimpse into, well, basics of castle life.
Sketches from the Antiquarian Museum in Edinburgh. Plate FDs. Smaller items.
Yeah, portable things. Wooden crozier heads, iron sandglass stands from churches, a silver cross, baptismal basin stand, nail heads, a brass key head. Shows the range of craftsmanship.
A turret from Glascoon Castle. Plate XE6 revealed construction methods.
It did. A 16th century addition. He noted the old timber roof framing inside no wall plate, used iron bats, and squints under each window.
Squints. Angled spy holes.
Basically, yeah. Or defense, giving a wider view.
Scots decoration. Plate 37. Interior painting.
Exactly. Distemper-painted ceiling joists. He saw examples in castles like Dowcross, Colross, Blairlogie, Killarney, and an Edinburgh house. Notes on colors and patterns?
A later monument from Melrose Churchyard, plate XE7, showing the Adams style.
Yes, 18th century neoclassical influence. Square plan, pilasters, cornice, ball finials, festoons, a contrast to the earlier grave markers. He also shows a red sandstone marker nearby with Memento Mori on it, dated 1761 on the front.
Engraving examples from old books, plate X68, another angle on decorative arts.
Right. Headpieces, tailpieces, initial letters from Bibles, 1607, 1678, and Atlas, 1635. Notes how designs were often reused in later books, same for decorative book stamps.
Outside stairs with stone parapets, plate XX9, common in old Scots houses.
Oh, apparently so. Examples from Burnt Island and Kincardine, the Kincardine one being fancier. Also a skew putt detail, the bottom stone of the gable coping. And a note on Burnt Island Church's interior.
Window heads, plate XX7, often had dates and initials.
Yeah, a common way to personalize and date buildings. He shows examples from all over South Queensferry, Preston, Edinburgh, Culross, Pittenweem. Lots of variety.
Or Edinburgh doors, Beringer's close, plate XA8, late 15th century.
Measured drawings again. Notes a missing coat of arms panel. Also sketches a projecting window in the Canongate, comparing its top detail to one in Preston, and a 17th century corner detail from Bakehouse Close, always comparing and connecting.
Colross Town Hall details, plate XL9, civic architecture from 1626.
Lots there. A wooden panel mold with Sir George Bruce's arms, 1628. Cornice section, rafter feet construction detail, eaves course, chimney cope, dated door lintel, window jamb sections, a really thorough look.
Another tomb, St. Cuthbert's Churchyard, Edinburgh, plate L, mid-18th century.
Interesting because it still uses older symbols, skull and crossbones, winged heads, even in the mid-1700s, but with more contemporary, well-studied moldings. Shows that overlap of tradition and newer styles.
Details from Tranent, plate LI. A village with fewer old buildings left.
Yeah, but he still found things. A two-light, round-headed window, an old coat of arms, John Facet of that ilk, a 17th century iron railing, a roof construction bit like Culross, plain shutterboards, a variation on crow steps. Still valuable clues.
Rosslyn Castle details, plates hip 2 and 53, influenced by the famous chapel nearby.
Very much so. Especially the elaborate 1622 doorway. It uses Gothic-style moldings like the roll and fillet and pateray decorations.
Pateray, those round panels.
Right. He details the jam molding enrichments, the frieze pateray, trellis patterns, cornice carving, panel mold pateray, a real fusion style. Notes the unusual window sizes, too.
Shields again, plate 50 few, both church and domestic examples.
A whole range. Passion emblems from the museum in Haddington Church. Sacred monograms from Trinity College, Farnell Castle. Domestic ones from Edinburgh Closes. A memorial tablet shield from Duddingston. Shows how widespread heraldry was.
Middlework, plate XL2, iron and brass objects.
Functional and decorative. The battered sandglass stand from John Knox's pulpit. Door handles, latches. A hinge and handle from a 15th century oak cabinet. Brass keyhole escutcheon and handle from the late 16th century.
And even more metalwork on plate 57.
Uh-huh. Some really curious items. Witches' branks from Dunfermline.
Those punishment masks?
Yeah. Shutter handle candle spike. Hinge tail from Linlithgow. Decorative iron from Rowan, 1562. A French money box. A handle from Darnick Tower. Quite a collection.
A view of Crail,
Yeah.
plate LX, showing the town hall's Dutch influence.
Yes. The sketch highlights the belfry, similar to ones in Musselburgh and South Queensferry. Clear Dutch style. Notes the common crow-stepped gables in the town, too.
Sterling Church Tower, plate Silky 2, a big 15th century structure.
Massive, yeah. He mentions old tombstones around it and that John Knox's pulpit used to be inside, connecting it to history.
And finally, Grates, plate Salty 3, often overlooked.
But important. An old iron one from Holyrood, possibly very early, designed for both logs and coal, showing a change in fuel use. Plus, more brass details from Darnick Tower, keyhole escutcheon, candlestick.
Wow, that is an incredible amount of detail packed into one person's sketchbooks. From, grand churches and castles right down to door handles and ceiling paint.
It really is extraordinary. John W. Small's Scottish architectural details. It's just such an invaluable record of Scotland's built heritage.
Yeah, these detailed sketches, his notes. They're a primary source, aren't they? Letting us see the evolution of styles, but also just appreciate the sheer skill and artistry involved.
Absolutely. The craftspeople, their aesthetic choices, it all comes through.
So, thinking about all this, the care, the detail in these historical examples, kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? How does our approach today to architectural detail, to preservation, how does it stack up?
That's a big question.
What lessons can we maybe take from these leaves from a sketchbook for, the future of the buildings around us?
It definitely gives you food for thought.
Maybe something for you, the listener, to think about next time you pass an older building. Look a bit closer, beyond the main shape. What stories are hiding in those small details?